Today we have a special episode for you. In this day, as more and more racial injustices coming to light, we have found ourselves in a very unique situation. We are housemates who are of different races, different backgrounds, close friends, living together as really crazy things are happening in the world around us. And so I just thought it would be an amazing time, maybe a hard time, but by amazing, I mean a good opportunity in light of everything that's happening in the world today for us to talk and share about how to have conversations about racial issues with friends of another race. So I have my housemate Katrina here with me, and we're gonna have a conversation. Here goes. Hi there, beautiful people, and welcome back to Modern Woman. I am here again with my friend Katrina, and we're going to be talking today about how to have conversations about race, ethnicity, and racial injustice with a friend of another race. Really, this is going to apply to Black and white friends. You know, our perspective. It's very different when you're talking about it in America. I know that there's racial injustice that happens all around the world in lots of different ways. So this is not a one-size-fits-all conversation. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to give a little bit of history about our friendship and how we got to know each other. I met Katrina about 3 years ago at church, and we were on a worship team together. And over chatting in the green room, I guess after a service about black and white movies and Anne of Green Gables, we discovered that we were gonna make great friends.
I wondered where she'd been all that long.
Oh, it was so sweet. And then our friendship was born. So as we are kind of walking through this situation with the pandemic, well, she moved in last year. I bought this house last year. She moved in, striking out on her own. We are a house full of independent women. And the pandemic hit, and then amidst that, the racial situations came to light with the unjust murders. We found ourselves having conversations that I never thought I would have like this. First, I wanted to talk about what your experience has been like. Well, not first, I want to talk about, because I've been talking a lot. But my first question for you is, what was your reaction to the deaths of Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd? How did that impact you?
It was actually, I really feel life-altering. Every environment that I've been in, my neighborhood, I grew up with different races as friends in my church. All of the situations I was in, I really didn't experience racism. Like, I didn't see examples of it for most of my life, which is a huge blessing that wasn't happening. But at the same time, I kind of had this idea, I guess looking through rose-colored glasses, that I would, even if I thought I saw something that was kind of racist, I would be like, that can't be real. Like, I'm sure people don't actually believe that or think that way. Because ever since I learned what racism was, I just thought it was the stupidest thing I'd ever heard of. But when the Ahmaud Arbery situation happened, I had watched the video and I was so heartbroken, and so I posted something about it, which I know it seems like that's such a small thing, but nowadays world, anything you post can and will be used against you. Yeah. And I knew it was a risk as far as with some people. I guess I didn't realize how much of a risk it was, but I realized like it really impacted me. And then I also noticed how it didn't impact some people in the way I thought it would, and that was pretty eye-opening.
Yeah.
So it really hit me. Number one, I finally stopped suppressing. Honestly, it was just, I despised the idea that anyone thought that way or felt that way and then treated people that way. And it always felt like when you watch movies and things, oh, it is in the past, it's in the past. So really what happened was I suddenly was hit with the realization this is happening right now. I'm in the middle of it, and people that I love the most are being affected.
That is such a good point. It was really interesting seeing how you navigated through it, because I went numb. And in a I came to a place where I realized, man, I'm numb because there's a thought in my mind that this is just the way that it is. And I didn't realize that I was thinking that way. Investing myself in it emotionally when I was so used to seeing the problem be perpetuated. I didn't even know that I had that place of complacency in me from the trauma of having watched it. And this is not the first time that we actually have had to deal with this as friends. We were at, in February, since we both love musicals, My Fair Lady was in Greenville, South Carolina, and we decided to go to the Westin Poinsett. Now, it is a big deal for me to be able to stay at that hotel because I remember being in college in Greenville there and driving past that hotel, and I looked at the rates and I was like, there's no way I could afford to live here. And I said, one fine day when I got a little bit of money, I'm gonna go and stay at the Westin Poinsett. So I'd stayed there once before, a couple years ago, to see a musical, and said, hey Katrina, do you want to go on a girls trip? We went, we were staying there. We were having breakfast. I noticed that the waitress for our table that the hostess told us was going to serve us was not serving us at all. I saw another couple come in, and she was just taking such good care of them, chatting with them and everything. And I heard the gentleman call her name. And I was like, that's our waitress. And she's not doing anything. At some point she's chatting, and she was not serving us. To a point where I go to ask another waitress to give us coffee, let her know our coffee, and ask her to remove our plates. And at one point in the meal, and I'm not a crier, but when I realized what was happening, I was like, this woman is not serving us because I am Black. I've had a couple of situations where I had been experiencing racism indirectly, but my parents were able to shelter me from that. This is the first time, and I said, Katrina, she's not serving me. She's not here coming to this table because I am Black and you are white, and she does not like that we are sitting down having a meal together. And I had brought it up to the staff at the front desk, and they didn't say, oh, I'm sure that wasn't the case. When I mentioned the name of the person, someone's face went, and they were not surprised. Well, I won't say that they weren't surprised, but they were very, very apologetic about the experience. And so on the heels of that was in February. And then we come to March, April, and all this stuff breaks out. It was just it's been a hard year. What was your take on that experience? That's my side of it and what I saw.
I think, again, I really hadn't had very many experiences at all, as far as like witnessing anything like that. At first, I was oblivious. I was like, they just have bad service here. Because you were facing out, seeing everyone. I was facing Alicia, so all I could see was you. And but then when you pointed it out, I was like, oh man, yeah, like everyone else is getting served. Like, why aren't we? And then I did a little test. I drank like all of my water to see, because the water table was right next to us. Like, you literally, all the waiters had to come fill up waters from that whole table. And I sat there and waited for the waitress to come, and the hostess came and filled our waters before the waitress ever even came, if she was going to. And I was like, this does not make sense. I've never seen a hostess refill my water before. Like, I've never had that happen. So I just couldn't believe it. I was like, this is just crazy. And honestly, I felt like I didn't do enough. Like, I felt really, I don't know. I just felt like I could have done something more. But maybe I would have made it worse. But my thing was, I just didn't want you to pay, because I just didn't feel like you didn't deserve to pay for any of that, like, because it was just a terrible experience. But we had already eaten everything. So if we had just sat down and she just didn't serve us, we would have just left.
Yeah.
But we had already eaten, and it was kind of halfway through the meal that we noticed what was
going on. Because it was a buffet type situation. Exactly. Where you just serve yourself and they come and they fill stuff up. And
right.
I've been to other nice hotels. I had been to that hotel before and had different service. And I think the hard part was when I emailed the hotel, the person who responded said we are not racist here. We don't have any prejudice. We have a black group of men coming from Clemson State who are going to be at a symposium in Clemson whom we're hosting. And I was like, just because the hotel has a policy doesn't mean that wasn't my experience. And so, yeah, it was hard. So anyway, as friends, we have had a situation where we've experienced a scenario of racism together. That was my own experience in that little microcosm of a restaurant. It's nothing like a woman or a family or a daughter losing their son, their husband, their sister or brother. So at any rate, I just wanted to also talk about what we've done to have a conversation to be real in our friendship.
I would say number one, to all my fellow white people, it is not any other person's job to educate you. If you're a child, you're a teenager, yeah, I get it, you're gonna need help. But as a full-grown adult, you got Google, you got Netflix, Amazon, you got books, you got so many resources. So please do not think that it is anyone else's responsibility to educate you. Now, I would tell Alicia and Anita, I need you to tell me. If you see me do anything, say anything, post anything, act in any kind of way that is in any way, shape, or form racist, like I need you to tell me. Some of my other friends have been amazing in sending me documentaries to watch and just things to really educate and open my eyes. And let me tell you, like, just because you don't agree with everything that is said in the documentary doesn't mean it's not educational. So if you have different politics than the ones that are mentioned, that's okay. You take what you need to take from it and apply it to you. That has been the biggest way that's made it easier for me to have a conversation, because I will watch something or read a book. One that was really good was Just Mercy. I've talked with Alicia and my other roommate Anita a lot about that. So I would say if you don't know where to start with educating yourself, and then you ask questions based on what you've learned. You don't ask, say, tell me, teach me, show me, I need to know, because then you make it almost like it's not your responsibility anymore to figure out what you believe or to understand someone that's different from you. So that's what helped me the most, because then it made the conversations I had a lot more beneficial.
Yeah, and I, along with that, would say for both sides, choose to lay down your perception of what you have thought about the other race before you start the conversation. Because not all black people are the same and not all white people are the same. And you don't want to look at that conversation with that friend as a matter of you're black or white, because that is, because of what it means, just those words, what they mean right now to us, it's a good exercise to say, I'm not talking to a white person right now. I'm talking to my friend, sister, Katrina. Mm-hmm. And so when I take off that, the racial terms kind of, I think, create a blockage and a safety net to hide behind both ways, where you don't have to really deal with that person. And then I guess also be honest. Like, you've got to be honest about what's going on and not make excuses for what is going on. Whether the people, whether someone is doing something right or wrong in the moment, when there is an officer or a person of authority and responsibility who is making a choice to behave wrongly, they're meant to be behaving in a particular way and are meant to operate in a way of honor regardless. Someone's wrongdoing does not validate another person doing wrong and in retaliation. So you've got to be real and be honest about what's going on in the history, because when you look at the history, if you really look at it, because people tell on themselves in history all the time, you're going to find it. And it's a matter of choosing to be blind or choosing to have your eyes wide open. But at the same token, me being black, I had to I had some things to be honest about as well. And being vulnerable is also a really important key I remember having a conversation with you about COVID-19 and the racial injustice and stuff happening, and even how COVID affected African Americans differently because of how we were synthesized, and the vitamin necessary that helps with your immunity and all that stuff. I had to choose to share some fears and things that I normally would not have shared, that were a healthy background, I think, that helps you understand where I was coming from better. So
I think the biggest thing is you have to have love and compassion for whoever you're talking to, whether it's someone of your same race or a different race, or any conversation you have about this. Like, a person is a person. No matter what happened with George Floyd, whatever race he was, it was horrible, and it was wrong, and it was awful, and it needed to be dealt with. But because he was Black, and because of the history, because of the constant stream of these kinds of situations coming up, it had a greater impact, as it should. But still, he's a human being. So I don't care what your political beliefs are. I don't care what your religious beliefs are. Like, he's a human, and we should have compassion, and we should do the same for everyone around us. And if you do that, then the conversations, they're not easy, of course not, but the conversations will always be beneficial, whether you agree or disagree about different points, because you're remembering that this is a person. Like, I live with my best friends, and therefore what affects them affects me.
man, you make some awesome points there.
Thank you.
So this is a pretty massive topic. We can't cover all today, but thank you so much for joining me in it. So hopefully you've heard some tips or some information that's been educational, has been helpful. If you found yourself having conversations, difficult conversations about these topics, if you had to have them with your children, whether you're white or Black, or with a spouse or with another friend, let us know. How did you navigate that conversation? What was the outcome? What was your takeaway from it? We want to hear from you. And thanks so much for joining us today. Remember to like this video if it's been helpful, informative. Subscribe to the channel so that we can keep building community together. And we will see you in the next video.